Draft National Infrastructure Plan been presented to us. Papers fairly short for us to look at, but more conversation available today. Welcome to the team, and the floor is yours when you're ready.
I'll make a start while they get the presentation together. Kia ora, good afternoon everyone. I'm Kath Carter, the Head of Strategy and Performance, and joining me today I've got Ben and Jack Davis from the strategy team. Today's briefing's got two purposes. The first is to give you an overview of the draft National Infrastructure Plan, and the second is to get your feedback on the submission that you have in your pack. The plan has been developed by the New Zealand Infrastructure Commission to provide an overview and long-term view of infrastructure needs and priorities in the country. The intention is to improve long-term planning and also investment decisions, but also to build greater consensus, certainty and confidence in the sector. Look, there are a couple of emerging themes which I thought I'd quickly touch on before we get into it. There is a stronger emphasis on the user pay model, particularly in network infrastructure, such as road charges. The importance of spatial planning is highlighted in relation to which supports what we're seeing around the RMA legislation and the reform, and I know you had a presentation on that last week, and we're seeing that aligning. But it also reinforces the importance of the work we're doing in the district in developing the area plans to support this work. The third key theme emerging is around the need to prioritise and focus on the maintenance and management of our assets. It's not something we've done well as a country, and it's really calling that out as a key area of focus. And then finally, what we're seeing is a call for increased involvement from the private sector, in particular around economic development infrastructure such as stadiums and civic centres. Before I hand it over to Ben and Jack to take you through the presentation in terms of a quick outline of the plan and the submission points, I just wanted to acknowledge the input across the organisation into the submission from our colleagues in infrastructure and also our colleagues in policy. Thanks.
Push that button.
This is Jack. It's also his first time in front of you guys, so be super nice.
Hello everyone. Kath kind of covered a little bit of the intro, but the plan basically outlines how the government plans to achieve the visions and objectives of the 2022 New Zealand Infrastructure Strategy. So it focuses on the decision making for infrastructure, the operating environment and the investments. It's not a prescriptive plan and doesn't recommend or reject any specific projects, but instead lays out a system-wide strategic approach that can be used to inform things like investment planning and asset management. Selwyn's infrastructure has a number of challenges to face. Population change, we've got a huge growth compared to other areas of the country, an ageing population and greater urban sprawl. We've got changing working populations, costs of maintenance and renewals are high, increasing risk from natural hazards and climate. We've got the alpine fault and flood risks. We're looking at continuing decarbonisation of our economy and new and emerging technology. So this plan provides 19 recommendations across the 4 focus areas that Kath identified. So those include sustainable funding to provide a focused and coordinated view of infrastructure spending. The plan outlines what is needed to ensure that the right amount of money is being invested in infrastructure relative to what we're willing to spend as a country, and balancing spending between different sectors and needs. It also includes a focus on clearing the way for infrastructure, which identifies the need for clear oversight, consistency in policy and the connection between infrastructure and other planning mechanisms, specifically spatial planning documents. Third area is the requirement to focus on maintenance, ensuring that existing infrastructure is well functioning, ensuring that we're being proactive in regards to resilience against natural hazards. And then finally, the need for right-size investment. The plan identifies that where there are fiscal constraints, we need to carefully prioritise what we're building and where we're maintaining existing infrastructure. This means focusing on funding projects when they're aligned with long-term needs and ensuring that they're the right size for the expected growth pathways, which links back to that clearing the way for infrastructure and ensuring that there's that connection between infrastructure and those spatial planning documents. I'll now hand over to Ben.
So we can run through those 4 areas and talk about the submission points, and do you want to provide comments as we go through that, or do you want to just jump to the comments now, or what's easiest?
Just
for
work
you?
through one by one, I reckon. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. So our general comments was that we support the plan overall. It's good to see kind of a clear approach for government to follow. We want to see that quality infrastructure that's not just focused on economic outcomes, but it's actually supporting our community and our community's outcomes. And just highlighting that we have shown our commitment to delivering that quality infrastructure and a clear plan from the government. If they follow similar processes, that would also be helpful to see how we can align with that. So there are general comments at the start of the document. Comments on that, otherwise.
Can we ask questions
Yes.
on each thing? It's just a small thing. So the second paragraph from the top, we're talking about Te Tamutu, Runanga and Te Ngātu Runanga, and got Ngāi Tahu in brackets. I just wonder if it's probably better to reference Ngāi Tahu at the start as opposed to being an add-on for that. Otherwise, I didn't have any other comments on that page. Thank you.
Look, I'm trying to get into my computer at the moment and it's just crashed on me, so my apologies. I did actually read this document. What I want, and I don't quite know which section, but asset management needs to be really, really upgraded. And I've had this discussion with Tim Mason around the fact that with asset management itself, we tend to build the infrastructure, then we wait till it's, needs fixing. Then it's fix and repair daily, and by the time we get to that stage, it needs to be totally rebuilt. My concern is a missing step, and I've had this discussion with other people, the local government conference, with regards to who are involved in asset management. What's sadly missing in the way that we actually look at our infrastructure planning is we don't do, say, a 5-year health check, a monitoring strategy, and to see the condition that we're actually in. We often just sweep the asset until it needs repairing.
Yeah.
And that's across the board, and I read the document and I would really like something like that 5-year monitoring reintroduced and actually put in the submission process, because, and I don't know where it fits exactly, but it is a process.
Yeah. So just to clarify, the draft infrastructure plan is aimed at the government delivery of infrastructure, and some of the key comments were around whether they should follow a similar kind of infrastructure strategy, long-term plan process for their infrastructure development as well. So I think that there's a comment later on about that, and we could add in that there should be some kind of 5-year monitoring of that as well. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll highlight that somewhere in there too.
Yeah, have you finished your
This is just the general ones, and we'll go into the specific, the 4 themes, and we'll go through the specific comments that we've made on those 4 themes as well. So it's just the overall comments at the start of the feedback
Okay,
that we're kind of
I'll-
looking at, and we can dive into it.
I'll
But-
dive into it at the second part
okay.
then.
And can I just see some clarity just on your comment there, Nicole? So just what is intended, at the moment we've got Te Taumutu Runanga and Te Ngaitu Hereri Runanga, in the brackets Ngāi Tahu, you're just saying that those Runanga are part of
yeah.
Ngāi Tahu?
Yeah.
Then you're not saying Ngāi Tahu is a separate entity from them as
Yeah,
well?
yeah. So we'll just clarify that's what
Okay.
what you just described is what we intend. So we'll
Okay.
make sure that's clear in that description of our.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, Nicole. You'll jump into the first one then, eh?
Yeah. So the next one's the key ones around the maintenance bit. So we're really wanting to highlight the reduction of those future costs, making sure that there is some audits and accountability for how these things are delivered and developed, and that recommendation around following a similar LTP process that the government should follow to show those projects in a clear, open kind of plan. So that's the key points around the maintenance elements that we've added into there.
Any comments on that?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, we are probably
Um,
backwards.
The first one we've got in our paper says
Yeah.
establish affordable and sustainable funding.
Okay, let's jump to that one then. But I can manage that. My
Cool.
bad. Yeah. So that one is that there is that kind of ongoing, updated, strategic, long-term decision thing. That there is those funding multi-year things put in place so that change of government doesn't kind of start to shift the priorities of those projects. And there's a real key there about trying to make sure that those clear projects are outlined so that local government and central government can then align and get some efficiencies along the way. And then the addition to those advocacy for growth pays for growth or user pays models that help like where those specific things can be paid for by the users of it, or the additional costs that they are causing, that there is a better way of funding for those things. So that's a summary of those comments related to that.
Comments are good. I'm wondering why we don't strongly agree with this one. Through the submission, we either agree or strongly agree with all of them. This one seemed to me like it was for me, a strongly agree.
Yeah.
But is there a reason why you didn't go to the extent of strongly?
Probably not. We can go strongly. Yeah.
Others might have a different view, but Sophie.
Yeah, I've actually got a query on how far the user pays part might go, just in the sense that particularly, for instance, we have an extensive local road network, and if it's completely user pays, then basically that would be great for me living in Rolleston and not particularly going very far, but it will be a nightmare if user pays for the likes of Lydia. And in some ways, fantastic. In other ways, that's going to hurt. And do we want to put something in there about the impact for smaller population areas? Because, if most of the damage, for instance, is being done by trucks, we know that the RUX system right now isn't really reflecting the damage done by trucks. That needs to be fed in there somewhere. And yes, it's all going to get paid for somehow, but it's a matter of how do you balance the individual responsibility as opposed to the public good. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There's probably like a nuance that I haven't quite got in that point there. So we can definitely add that element, especially when we're talking about some of our smaller communities, whether that would directly impact them unfairly. Yeah, we'll add more to that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's along the same lines. Tolls and charges all sound great, but how does that look on the ground? And yeah, for our communities that have to travel, I think you'll find if you talk to them, they're like, well, I pay for that through fuel on my car or road user charges or those types of things. So I think for those people, they'll probably tell you that it feels like a bit of double dipping for them. And I was just thinking about allocation of that and how that would actually work, because at the moment Canterbury doesn't see its full allocation at the moment. So, how's that gonna work, and how is the allocation of that relevant to the community or the district or region that it is taken from for investment? So, we're already lacking. I'm going to see more of that because that's going to make people really mad. Yeah, that's probably enough on that. Oh, with the finance, and this was sort of before I'd actually read the infrastructure plan. Immediately what had popped into my mind was actually international investment into infrastructure, and if this will lead the way for that. But I didn't really see much of that mentioned in the plan.
No, it's probably what's hinted at in terms of trying to figure out alternate ways to deliver the infrastructure, and that would probably need a element of user pays to have a return that's directly associated with it. So that's possibly that's outlined there. But as this is more like the commission trying to tell the government how they should do it, I don't think they've gone that far yet. But yeah, so I didn't see that much there, so we may just leave that one.
Yeah, neither. Yeah, neither did I. So yeah, probably can't put comment into that. But thank you.
Cool, thank you. So on that section, recommendation 2, that's talking about with that our long-term plan alignments between central government and local government. I just question whether we actually use the example of Waka Kotahi decision making, us with an expectation of how much we think we're going to get, but their decision comes in later and we don't always get what we think we might this time around, case in point. And it's since it's after when our plan has been adopted. The recommendation 4, I had the question around, are they going to increase road user charges and stuff like that, and sort of questioning around the reference to water pipes as well and what they were thinking with that. In the discussion for that recommendation 4, I just see for the second sentence, if the more directly users can pay, I think it might be better as direct. Sorry, a bit anal about things like that, but otherwise that looks good. Now, recommendation 5, so it's talking about the land transport system, looking at the whole network. I thought it was talking about rail, fuel taxes. It's talking about rail as well, wasn't it? Yeah. Sorry, I'm just reading it quickly. I did it last night. So, I'm not sure about with the rail conversation. It's also looking differently around, I think if you're looking at public transport with rail and those sorts of things, there's different drivers for where you're trying to get the money back from. If you're looking at whether I think it's freight as opposed to trying to get people off roads and then having to build more roads, I think there's more a nuanced conversation that needs to be had, and I'm not sure it actually comes through that well with what's written here or what was in the document.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think we could probably add something around that the users paying for the use of it, but actually if it's a PT use where there's actual benefit being accrued, then maybe they can then
because there is,
the use
as we know, there's a lot of benefits of getting more people into public transport. I mean, there's air pollution, there's heaps of stuff, congestion, lowers congestion and those sorts of things. But that's enough for me for that section. Thanks.
Sorry. I'm just going to read what's here and I'll let you guys take off it because obviously these guys have covered, but just in case there's a little bit more in additional. Users of infrastructure do not necessarily have the means to pay additional sums to cover the costs in a user pay system. This may well punish the vulnerable citizens who live further out of town due to the housing affordability. These very people cost us more for roading and water infrastructure per person. This needs to be a very sensible, balanced approach. It's too simplistic and idealistic. Central government need to come to the table in discussions on some required infrastructure upgrades. Also, this applies for the rural sector because as we've imposed more housing on our rural boundaries, we've pushed them further and further afield. So then if we increase the road user charges, they're actually increasing all of their costs. We have to realise that it's really important that we achieve a workable balance here between what we need to do and what people can afford to do.
Thanks. Yeah. It's clear direction. Yeah. All right.
Are we only getting to talk once, or we can bring it?
No, we'll go to the next one. Next one's clear the way for infrastructure. So that was talking about better coordination of projects, streamline processing to get it started, and then the use of spatial plans as a way of kind of guiding and directing and prioritising where the infrastructure investment happens, and that there's a bit of section in there around making sure that there is a workforce in place and supporting that have the right skills to deliver all of these kind of infrastructure projects. So, any comments on that?
Councillor's
That's
happy
the
with that?
comment? Good. Yeah. Good. Tick.
Nicole?
So the next, so for, no, I'll say that later. So recommendation 4 is talking about spatial planning. I just wonder whether we could just reference about GCP spatial plan as part of that. I mean, that's work that's done here. I don't know if it's to the reading what they've put, whether it's to the detail that they are looking at, but it does have enough of, wet planning type things. Yeah, I found, so recommendation 6 about getting enough skilled and experienced leaders to deliver them well, and I thought this was an interesting thing when you hear about what's happening with the likes of the polytechnics and stuff at the moment, and whether, I mean, that would be where a number of these people would come from as well, and I'm just wondering whether that is appropriate to be highlighted there as well. Thanks.
Yeah, so does anything in here really stipulate that the councils need to have more teeth so that we can really align development in the right direction? Because that's clearly one of our biggest issues. And it's something that we need to keep hammering home, that it's all very well us stipulating this is what we'd like, but until we've got legislative teeth so that we actually can fundamentally really decline when it's not in the right place, because that's where we've got infrastructure costing us more. Clearly, as you would well know, is when people build where they've bought cheap land, it's further out, it doesn't fit in the best place for us with the long-term plans.
Yeah, so this is primarily aimed at central government sorting out their process, and that we can then align projects to those upgrades. So it'd be like the doing the overpass over there, and that's tied to some other of our kind of upgrades that we all need to do alongside that. So as long as they can get clear on when those things are happening, we can get clear on that, and it's not kind of shifting with the time. Yeah.
Can we kind of feed that in, that if we've got more teeth, then we can marry into that infrastructure, those upgrades in a better way?
Yeah.
Thank you. Next one.
Yeah, so we are looking at start with maintenance. So there was to talk about the upkeep of the existing stuff to reduce those future costs, an audit kind of process to assure accountability that may touch on Deborah's point as well, and then the long-term planning processes that they need to follow. So.
This is really critical. This is why New Zealand's in the problem that we're in, is because through the 80s and 90s we didn't invest in infrastructure to keep it up to spec, and we kicked it down the road, and now councils in our situation are paying for it now, and central government will be as well, but we don't see the data because their data is not as transparent as councils are. So I think this is a really important thing to acknowledge. What we've already got needs to be well cared for.
Yeah.
Grant, yeah?
Doesn't that reflect Deborah's asset management question though? I mean,
I guess one of the things that really surprised me as a governor sitting here, I was hearing a lot of information from our staff, not planning staff, from the engineering team, how wonderful our maintenance and everything was going. And then we get an independent assessment from the engineering, and they say our level of asset management maturity is immature. And so the messaging we were hearing was that we were really good on asset management, but actually the reality wasn't quite there. And probably that's where we've ended up with maintenance, which is not quite. So it might relate to the staffing issue you bring up, saying there's asset management and quality staff are really required.
Yes, I think there was a focus in here around the independent auditing for the central government processes that we were keen to see that, and then that's also something that could become best practice for us as well in the future. So as long as they kind of establish those kind of processes for understanding those costs and how they're going and how the upgrades are going, then we can also then follow that as well.
Sharon?
I also want to add in as well that we've actually now got an internal audit programme established through Risk and Audit, which hadn't been in place for quite some time. So actually that's something that could be wrapped up also into the internal audit programme. And I know the Risk and Audit Committee have been talking about what needs to be in that internal audit programme, and I would expect to see this kind of thing included in that going forward.
Okay. Next one, Ben.
So the last one is a right size investment. So that's building more transparency into the decision-making process, publishing more information, getting those independent assessments on those costs, risk management processes, recommendations to track how the projects are going, and looking at that, how we can bring those private investment elements into it as well. So.
Thank you. Deborah?
I'm going to go back to local government conference, because supporting public transparency and decision making, including the business cases. I went to a seminar at a recent local government conference. Grant was there as well, and there's a standardised map or a graph that all procurement people use apparently, and it's just a little L with up like this and up like this. There's a sweet spot in the middle where you actually meet the procurement. If you get everything right here, you're not adding a whole lot of costs here. Once you cross that sweet spot, you are actually adding costs and losing control of your procurement process. And it was just a little graph, a standard explanation, and I would somehow really appreciate that when you're doing all your planning, your business case, you have to get it right in that first 50% up to the sweet spot. I can't remember, I'm trying to remember, it was cost. I actually drew the graph down because it was a standard procurement, but the person who delivered the presentation, Graham, on behalf of, can't think what his surname was, but he actually emphasised to everybody listening that if you go past that sweet spot, you are going to be in serious management issues with your costings. It's too late. So I don't know how you actually include that into your business case, but somehow that little graph needs to be highlighted.
I think they've talked there about the upfront stuff and having all that in place before these kind of big projects go ahead. So I think that would be where you'd hope to see those elements kind of considered and brought forward and published, so that you are aware of the costs or the risks around those key projects and how they've decided to manage that. So that's kind of what this recommendation is looking to do. Yeah. So that does kind of align with that.
Deborah, sorry, we just can't hear you because the microphone has been turned off. Sorry, I'll just have to ask you to stop. And we'll... Okay, I'll shut. No, we still won't be able to hear you, Deborah, because it's live streamed and transparent. So we get that you've got something that you would like included. What we've heard from Ben is that they're already thinking about that stuff ahead of time.
If you could find that, we could share that in there. Sorry, more questions?
Elizabeth.
This might not be the right spot. I'm getting a wee bit lost, but we heard today about. I'll come back to it. I did read in here, but I just can't find where it was, about having a transparency over when a job's gone wrong, and there being some kind of notifiable process. So we've with the situation that we've just found ourselves in today with engineer issues. So, sorry, whoops. I'm going to delete that bit. Okay, sorry. So we need to have something that's not a bottom of the cliff solution, because I feel that that is, and be able to be really proactive in New Zealand. We do get a lot of international engineers, and I'm wanting to understand if we're doing enough when we get people coming in, that they're meeting the changes in the industry and that they're getting ongoing training, and there's a requirement in the industry so people are coming up to speed with changes. And obviously there's a lot of talk now about another resurgence of leaky home issues in the building industry. So is there provisions in this document for the top of the cliff stuff? So we're preventing people from ending up at the reporting problem stage?
So one of the key ones they outlined was that long-term workforce, and having that come through, so that that was on the clear the way for infrastructure to make sure that that workforce is here and can have certainty that there is going to be a lot of key government projects over the next 30 years, so that they can kind of come and learn the kind of the New Zealand context and the processes here, and then be able to just keep building on top of that. So if we need more people to come and be part of that workforce, they can see that there is 50 years or how many years of key projects to be part of. So that was part of that.
Is it a requirement of the industry at the moment that they have to continue with it? Is it self?
Yeah, I'm not
adhered
sure how that works, but I think the key point they're making is ensuring that if we are clear on how many projects can provide that certainty over the 30 years, that people can show up here and feel like they've got that certainty in terms of projects coming on, so they can stay and build on that experience.
That's a separate issue. I would like to know that we've got assurances in the way that we create provisions for people, so that we know that they are upskilled on a regular basis to be able to stay in the industry.
We could add on that to that point around additional knowledge, but I think it might be beyond what these guys have kind of are highlighting and pointing out. But we could probably add future ongoing training.
And the intended audience for this is about the New Zealand infrastructure plan. So it's about all the big things that are going on. Some, councils have over a quarter of the infrastructure in New Zealand. So some of this is us, but most of it is actually what the government is up to and doing. Ben, was there other things you wanted to raise with us?
No, so we will send another draft version of the summary with these feedback, and this is to be submitted on the 6th, so that's a week from today, and then we'll have it on your next council agenda for retrospective endorsement. I'm sorry, we didn't quite nail the early endorsement like the going for growth ones. But yeah, just the timing of it and the work. So yeah, we'll get that round tomorrow, and then if you've got any comments, then get it through. Otherwise, we'll take it as that this feedback here plus what we've got is what we will put back to the Infrastructure Commission.
Thank you. It seems overall like it's a massive move, and it's really good for us as a country to be moving this way. I'm just wondering, was there any reason, again, just coming back to the beginning, that we've gone with agree rather than strongly agree? Feels like, I don't know, to me there wasn't, unless we wanted to have a hierarchy of our own things that we wanted to push more than the others, I didn't really see a reason why we would only agree with some things. Like, all of this is a massive improvement from where we are, so to strongly agree with it is a big step.
I thought the same when going through it. I can see why you want to temper it as being agree, but yeah, if we want strongly agree, we should acknowledge that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that.
And there are just a couple of things, and I don't know whether they fit in at the beginning, or kind of where they sit, but there's around big projects there can be like optimism bias about how well the intended outcomes are going to be, and we sell that as a story before we actually do any interrogation, and so we get started on stuff on hopes and on excitement rather than on proper interrogation and understanding. And so that comes back to what Deborah was saying before. I just wonder if there's something at the very beginning that talks about how politics and conversation can sometimes get in the way of good decision-making processes around big infrastructure.
Yeah, it's a really good way to frame that, and that kind of ties to that, trying to keep that 30-year project in place rather than kind of
Flip-flopping between elections. Great. Kath, Ben, Jack. Jack, you did a great job. First presentation. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We'll
Thank
adjourn
you.
the... Oh, yep. Done, Ben. We'll adjourn the meeting and we'll start back at 1:05. Kia ora, and welcome along to our briefing. We have a conversation now about Lincoln, some sports development and recreation use. James, I'll hand over to you.
Kia ora, thank you, Sam. Sorry, I'll just move this a bit closer. Afternoon, everyone. Look, today it's my pleasure to be joined by both Barry and Yvonne from Lincoln Sports Hub. We're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in Lincoln with the Lincoln Sports and Recreation Hub in a moment, but I thought I might take this opportunity just to discuss what a sports hub's all about and talk about its sort of direction around the Play, Active Recreation, Sports Strategic Action Plan. Hubbing was discussed as part of that to quite some extent as the way forward for a lot of clubs in our communities, and a way to stop some of the duplication or the multiplication of efforts on some of our reserves. So just to recap where we've come from and a little bit about sports hubs. A sports hub is a shared multi-use facility that sports and recreation groups co-locate and collaborate on. Things like shared administrators and shared club rooms are obviously all part of that, but also programs are run out of that site to help generate revenue to help sustain all the clubs involved in the hub. It's been used across New Zealand in a number of good examples, but I will frame it up to say there's some not so good examples too, where council or other entities have had to come in, and other funders have had to come in and save the day. So that's something to recognise as we work through this. We have to be quite careful with how we progress this sort of model because it can bring some challenges down the track. I've got about 10 slides, and then these guys have got about 20 minutes, but I'm happy to take questions at the end of my presentation if you like. I just want to talk a little bit about a couple of local examples in a minute, but before I get to that, the key features of a sports hub are shared facilities. So what do we all share a court, we all share club rooms, we all share changing facilities. That's kind of the key cornerstone of these facilities. The aim here is, again, to stop the duplication of efforts. Often you see in a lot of our reserves, we have a netball club, a rugby club, potentially a football and a tennis club as well, that are all trying to sustain their own club space, and they all get used about 4 hours a week. Often they are at the same time, but often they are not at the same time as well, and that's where some of the collaboration can come in. There's obviously collaborative governance across the hub as well. So the governance of a hub actually sits quite separate from clubs. Neither of these two lovely humans next to me actually are part of the clubs that are involved in this. They're sitting as a different level of governance. But the clubs all feed into that and are key members of the hub to help guide and direct where they go. In terms of community access, it's not just club members that can use the hub, community can use it as well. And Lincoln does present a bit of a unique opportunity with Selwyn District Council already having obviously a facility there as well. In terms of flexible use, the hubs that have been really successful haven't just stuck to only sport and recreation. It's been a whole lot of things that they've looked at. That might include trade shows or other events to help sustain the club. And the hubs, and then also strategic planning. So this is where I think this particular hub can really add some value, is that Lincoln is obviously growing rapidly, and there's quite a few developments happening on and around that reserve that will be really useful to have their involvement in. In terms of a local example, Eastern Sports Hub at Rawiti is probably one of the key ones. As everything goes here, there's a bit of a backstory to it, and some of this was funded through COVID relief funding or earthquake recovery money that the community hub was able to be well prepared for. So that's some of the discussions that are going around, is actually have some ambitious plans, and you never know what might come up in terms of funding. But they cover off a few things. So they're located in New Brighton, obviously. 11 clubs are part of that organisation, and wide-ranging in terms of their sport. Everything from more traditional sports such as rugby, but also men's shed and things like that. They even have like a nature aspect to it in terms of a butterfly and aviary area as well. Christchurch City Council supported the transformation. there were some existing facilities there that the community and the hub really advocated for covering or enhancing, and different funding streams were available to the hub that weren't available to council to help make that happen. Where that's ended up is they have an all-weather canopy over their courts, which has some turf in it for football and that sort of thing. It's all floodlit. It can cater for a number of different uses, and it's really enabled that community to have sustainable club access to those really great facilities, which is really good. And council, I guess, has really taken a facilitation role. They haven't had to fund millions and millions of dollars of infrastructure in this space. They've really looked to support through funding streams and that sort of thing and enable things to happen. So that's been really good. Another example, a little bit further away, is the Tautauponiki hub in Wellington. This is a pretty good example and sort of mirrors a little bit of what's happening in Lincoln, where a rugby club was really struggling, had a large space, a large facility that could be revitalised and reused. So over here, the seven major clubs came together and looked at what the space could be transferred into, be it sport, training, meeting space. I think some of you may have been inside this facility for various functions in Wellington when you've been up there. It's a great use of space. It has a bar and hospitality area as part of it as well, and is really starting to thrive. The difference with this one is, although Wellington City Council played a facilitation role, they did also inject some capital funding, but also the key thing was to link them in with different other funding partners such as lotteries, iwi, NZCT, that sort of thing. So that was really helpful for council to play that role. Look, the outputs that are happening there are to really address the single-use facilities that are often present in lots of the reserves that are around the place. It promotes community wellbeing through volunteer retention. In fact, in some cases, the hubs are so successful that they can pay an administrator or things like that as well. Youth programs and other programs need to be run out of these sites to help enable them to work and help enable them to be financially prudent and sustainable. So the community does receive a lot more programming out of a lot of these hubs. And then, obviously, I've mentioned co-location a number of times as well. In terms of council's role in these hubs, and every hub is slightly different, so these aren't always rules, but in general, council is the enabler, not the owner. So council won't own the hub building or facilities that sit under them itself, but they might be on council land or reserves that council manage, and not necessarily having to commit a whole lot of capital funding or any capital funding in some instances. So really making sure that we link in with the appropriate funders and help push that forward. Hubs, like I mentioned before, can access funding streams that aren't available to council. So councils can't go through lotteries, community matters funding, NZCT. Yes, RATA will fund up to a certain extent, but this really supercharges those funding applications by having a wide range of users and having a wide range of organisations involved in the hub, which means it sort of takes it from here's a $200,000 potential grant up to here's $200,000 for each key member as part of the hub. So it really can supercharge what funding's available to the hub. And then long-term planning, I think, because these guys in the hub represent a wide range of user groups, they can act as a really great interface between some of the hub members and start to really strengthen those relationships. And I'm sure these guys will talk to some of that in a moment. That's me in terms of my general outline. I'm happy to take questions initially and then pass over to Barry and Yvonne to do their presentation, if you like.
Cool, thank you. Well, Barry and Yvonne, welcome as well. Great to have you here. And there might be a few questions, James, before we hand over just around the concept and some of the things you've raised this morning. So, Deborah.
Thank you. Look, thanks for the outline. Could I just ask a simple question? Springston, Associated Sports, Inc. Is this based on their model, because it sounds exactly like the model that they currently operate under with regards to all of their sporting codes and integrating the school and other uses for the facility. And it is managed by an arm's length committee, outside council, which is sort of like the remnants of the old community committee structures that we have, where it is elected members from each of those sporting codes that actually make up the Springston Sports Inc. So is that the line or the model that we are now looking at, just with what you've explained, because it sounds very much like it?
Yeah, that's very similar. I think what you're talking about in terms of the Springston model is has a direct line of sight back to the club in terms of the members on the committee. That's not quite how this hub is set up, and so I said every hub can be set up slightly differently depending on the wants and the needs of the members in the community. This one's slightly different, but to some extent, yes, it's a very similar setup in terms of everyone coming together to get better bang for buck out of the investment and less financial burden for each individual member club as part of the overall entity.
Sorry, Deborah, we'll have to come back to you. We can't hear you through. Elizabeth?
The first question that the community is probably going to ask is the existing Lincoln Event Centre, why is that not able to provide what you're asking for here?
Yeah, that's not an option that's not on the table, I don't think. So these guys are starting to work through exactly what this looks like down the track in terms of facility space. Actually, we're in the very early days of getting that together. We were just talking earlier about there's been a bit of a history in terms of the rugby club being offered some space in that building right when it was being built and declining it, and now there's probably a bit of retrospective disappointment that didn't occur, because it would have been a prime opportunity for that to start to occur. I guess what I'm talking to here is there's a bit of a rub here between clubs' independence and individual identities, and then actually getting together and making this sustainable for everyone moving forward. There's always going to be a bit of a push-pull there, and so that's kind of what these guys are starting to work through now, is what does this look like in the future? Could it be part of a Lincoln Event Centre? Could it be a part of a Lincoln Event Centre extension or refurbishment? Or how does this start to look? Rather than rugby club, you need to build a $1 million building. Netball, tennis, you need to build a $2 million building. Right, this is all going to cost a lot of money, and how's this all going to work? Because I think it's been pretty clear in the earliest parts of these conversations that no one has any money to do anything at the moment.
So just backing on to that, James, how appropriate is it for school halls, their sporting stadiums, to be a part of these conversations? And is that something that's really considered for the Lincoln aspect, given how the close proximity to the high school?
Yeah, absolutely. So Lincoln was chosen largely because of the opportunity that we saw with this high school sitting right next to it. And there's also a sports court as part of the high school. The extension to the Lincoln domain also there was this discussion starting to happen between council and the high school that weren't going too far around shared use across that extension. And this is where the hub's been able to come in and start to really strengthen that relationship and get some really good buy-in from the school around, hey, actually this makes sense to work together on some of this and share facilities. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that actually all the school stuff gets used heavily during the week and then not on the weekends, and that's when we need it. And if a bridge can literally be put across the culvert there, then it can be all opened up and maybe some shared investment down the track. But yeah, who knows where that may lead. This is, again, the start of the conversation.
Just with regards to the funding model, if I can go back to Springston, they actually operate a bar that is shared equally amongst the sports clubs when they hire it and utilise it, or the hirers. With regards to the hire out, who is currently the hire out fees, I understand, are transferred across to council. Is that correct? If they are hired out or not?
Are you referring to Springston
Yes,
only?
yeah.
I actually don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head. I believe that they're taking the revenue out of that off that site at the moment. I'd have to get back to you though for 100%
Okay,
clarity.
because each club also pays an affiliation fee
Yeah.
for belonging to that hub, that helps sustain, you know, the overheads of the building, probably outside what the council, that's over and above what the council minimum has been set. So that actually allows a greater level of service to be supplied for that facility that's not a burden back on the ratepayers. So that's another part of the funding model that's been utilised in Springston, that you might like to actually consider with how the operations actually work. So what I said, you just do some more investigation around Springston, because their model has actually worked a little bit differently again.
Thanks, Deborah. So, James, just confirming, what the conversation we're having now would be something new for Selwyn. There might be some things that are set up that have got some similarities to what you're suggesting right across the district, but this is actually something that's quite brand new for us, hence the briefing today. And I guess now's a good chance for us to get into some of the work that's been done to date and to understand, where we're at, particularly for Lincoln.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. Barry, I'll pass on to you for your presentation. I'll let you go for it.
Kia ora. Thank you, James. Kia ora koutou. Thank you for this opportunity to come along today and present on behalf of the Lincoln Sports and Rec Hub. My name's Barry Donaldson. I'm the chair of the board, and I'm joined today with Yvonne Bowater, who's our vice chair. So we're here today not just to inform, but to inspire a collaboration that can shape the future of sport and recreation for the Lincoln community. Can we jump to the next one, please? Who are we? So we were established in 12 months ago, July 2024. We're a non-profit organisation. We've been created to connect the sports and recreation clubs across Lincoln to create shared goals, shared resources, and shared strategic planning. Our board is a representative of community volunteers, elected club members, and others that are co-opted with specific skills at the time we need them. We are not a facility. We are a force for coordination and a heartbeat of the community in sports in Lincoln. Our kaupapa is to be grounded in participation, community, leadership, and equality in facility access. Our board is made up of passionate community leaders, each bringing a unique blend of governance experience, grassroots involvement, strategic insight, and it's a team of connectors, advocates, and visionaries who know how to listen, lead, and deliver. Myself, I have 30 years of executive and governance experience. I've lived in Lincoln for 16 years with my family and are passionate about community sport through my children. I provide strategic and financial leadership, fostering strong partnerships across schools, clubs, and our council. Yvonne is a former Nelson councillor and sector advocate. Yvonne has led national boards, community initiatives promoting ethics, youth, well-being, and social development. Now being in Lincoln, she's bringing a strategic insight and governance experience and value-driven approach to our hub. Grant Galloway, he's our treasurer. Grant is a chartered accountant and Institute of Directors member with 20 years of experience in finance, risk, and operations. A Lincoln-based local, active in the local rugby and netball clubs, Grant combines professional expertise and community involvement. Craig Crawford is an elected member also, founder of Evolution Creative, deep involved in sports and design expertise. He's held leadership roles in football, cricket, and school sports. Great community ties across the community. John Very brings a diverse background in education, law, HR, and governance with postgraduate qualifications from Canterbury and Lincoln. He's Deputy Chair of the Melbourne Community Board. He champions inclusive sport and well-being ensuring Lincoln Hub reflects community values, integrity and strategic plan purpose. We'd also like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the work of Eugen Sparchenko and Tony Biddle, who were part of the initial board, but due to personal life changes, they've had to resign. And also Peter Burley, who was co-opted on for the first 6 months to ensure the board's successful establishment. Okay. Who are we? This is an important one. About who we are. So Lincoln Hub is a strategic alliance driven for the shared goals, collaboration and community mindset. We currently represent over 4,400 members across our 4 member organisations, excluding those who are part of our 6 partner organisations. The member organisations are primarily those that are based in and around the Lincoln Domain area, including rugby, tennis, badminton, cricket, netball, bowling, also recreational activities of the Men's Shed of Lincoln and the Lincoln Scout Group. Our partner organisations stretch right across Lincoln, specifically more in the educational field. We have Lincoln High School, Lincoln Primary School, Ararita Primary School, the Lincoln University through the Sports and Rec Centre. We have also involvement of the Selwyn Sports Trust and Sport Canterbury. We also are still looking to expand. Selwyn United Football, one of the biggest football clubs in the South Island, are still showing interest in joining us as a member organisation. They are very keen on sourcing a Lincoln Hub, if possible, for the teams that are based in Lincoln to save the travel backwards and forwards and the pressure on the current Foster Park. Why we exist. We are looking to address the long-standing challenges that are addressing the clubs in Lincoln. We have ageing or insufficient facilities for our growth, underused green space due to fractured governance, decreased funding sources, increasing membership pressures on the clubs, and lack of strategic coordination between the clubs, the schools and council. Lincoln Hub can offer a single point of advocacy for the clubs and rec groups, a streamlined communication, facilitated sharing of resources, and a structure for governance and sustainability. I will stress we are not the governance of the sports groups. They remain independent of us. We are just there to assist them and be advocates for them. We've created, in October last year, as one of our first actions, was to take part in a member survey to understand the needs of the organisations that we are trying to represent. So it's not about what individual clubs want, it's about what our community needs based on the data and decisions coming up. There was demand for covered courts, more indoor space for activities, and a well-voiced new shared club rooms for all the organisations. There's infrastructure pressure, particularly for rugby, cricket, netball and badminton. And there was strong support for shared gym facilities, a tournament quality changing spaces and modern multi-use surfaces in Lincoln. I'll pass over to Yvonne to provide an update on progress for engaging with stakeholders.
Thank you. My arms aren't quite long enough. Thank you, Barry. So to re-emphasise the intro from James, we do have a vision for the Lincoln Domain, and the board envisions Lincoln Domain to be a thriving, inclusive hub for sport and recreation, and as James mentioned, the wider community with programs, and for it to be designed with sustainability and community at its core. For it to be well utilised, welcoming space fosters diverse sporting and recreational opportunities. Development will be guided by a community-aligned master plan supported by shared sustainable infrastructure. Vision will be realised through ongoing collaboration, transparent engagement with local schools, sport, recreation clubs, partners and the Selwyn District Council, ensuring the domain grows in step with the needs of Lincoln's evolving community. Realising the vision will take infrastructure partnerships and investment to realise this. So, next slide. What we've been doing, our key engagements. If I can, Selwyn District Council, can I do SDC? We're going there? Good. Tongue twister. Thank you. Our relationship with Council, it's a collaboration in progress. Selwyn District Council, SDC, played a foundational role in the creation of Link Hub, and from the outset, the board has prioritised open, respectful collaboration and dialogue with STC. Board member John F. Ferry and I have served as key liaisons, maintaining a transparent and constructive relationship with James Richmond, who as head of sport and recreation has been supportive of the Link Hub board and those whose involvement and consistent engagement has helped guide a collaborative and respectful dialogue. Thank you, James. We're sharing planned updates and conveyed feedback and perspectives from the community hubs. We're advocating for inclusive infrastructure as part of the Lincoln Domain redevelopment. That's a theme you're going to find throughout this presentation brief. We really do want to be inclusive of all. The board made a formal submission highlighting concern around ageing infrastructure and outlined the need for the development of a multi-use space to meet broad community needs. These community-driven suggestions centred on shared use facilities and equitable access. The Link Hub board values our ongoing dialogue with Council and remains committed to maintaining transparency as planning progresses. Next one. So, key engagement, Lincoln High School. We're currently engaging in open discussions with Lincoln High School around potential opportunities to share facilities, as discussed earlier by one of your councillors, that could serve both the school and the wider community. These conversations focus on exploring reciprocal access to sport, support inclusion and usability. We're also in dialogue with how physically, connectively between the domain and the school grounds might be approached in the future. There is also the alignment with National School Community Partnership initiatives led by Sport New Zealand and Ministry of Education. We've not discussed how this would be part of the process, however, it's just another aspect for consideration in collaboration with our high school. And in keeping with our transparency approach, we've created a direct connection between the school and council to foster open communication and collaborative thinking throughout these early conversations. It's mentioned by Barry earlier. We're advocating for everybody, but we're not actually just there for one. It's an amalgamation of us all. Next slide. So, membership engagement summary. So the Link Hub continues to foster strong connections with its members through inclusive consultation, transparent communication and ongoing collaboration. That's a sentence. Since our first newsletter earlier this year, we've shared foundational milestones, including the formal registration of our constitution in July last year and the adoption of our strategic business plan May 2025. March, we hosted an informal information evening to present our high-level strategy, share feedback from the member consultation survey and to introduce our digital platforms. We have a website and a Facebook group to better support connection and resource sharing. Again, it's something like we can put on the Facebook about the meeting that we're having tomorrow. And building on this, the July newsletter invited members to take part shaping the future of Lincoln Domain. And we've got a brainstorming workshop tomorrow at the Lincoln University Rec Centre. The session offers spaces for new ideas and reflections, ensuring future development remains grounded in member needs and community vision. And that, again, is our theme. We also want to encourage members to stay involved through regular updates, sharing news from clubs, organisations participating in upcoming opportunities that will continue to shape Lincoln sport, recreation future together. What we're trying to do is, I mentioned earlier, is it Deborah, Councillor, about the idea of membership fees and things like that. That's a wee bit further down than where we are now, but we have to create for our members the desire to belong, and when they have that desire to belong and their benefit of belonging, then they start to engage in such ideas as what was mentioned earlier. So what we're asking at this stage, next page, no, we're not there yet. Oh, are you jumping back in?
I'll jump back.
Is it your turn? Thank you. I'll pass back to Barry.
So in collaboration with our members and partners, we've developed a strategic plan. Thank you. Sorry about that. In collaboration with our members and partners, we've developed a strategic plan where we are presenting here today. What you're seeing today is just the plan on a page. There's a full document behind this, so it's more detailed. Our mission is through sustainable practices and community engagement. The Link Hub will support, enhance the choice of sport and recreational activities for all Lincoln residents and their visitors. We've identified 5 key values. Mahi nahi tai, through partnership. Kai tika, kai pono, transparency and openness. Mana akitanga, welcoming inclusiveness. Horoa, health and well-being. Hapori, community-centric ethos. Our strategic pillars supporting this are around facility infrastructure, activity, access and participation, community partnership and sustainability. So we want to improve the capabilities and capacity of Lincoln. We want a more active and healthy community. We want the community to be more connected and vibrant, producing long-term benefits out of our collective action.
And I'm back with communication more. So what we're asking, the Link Hub was established to represent the voices of our member organisations and partners, advocating for the needs of and to communicate to Council what the community needs at the Lincoln Domain. Strategic framework has been shaped by real survey insights and feedback gathered from our member organisations representing over 4,000 participants. Our intention as a board is to return to Council in the next new year to give a 6-monthly update on progress. So this is going to, as we've mentioned earlier, stay as a collaboration with Council, obviously. Although this is a briefing and no decisions are to be made today, as part of our ongoing engagement with the Selwyn District Council, we are seeking formal recognition as a planning partner, a role that would provide meaningful opportunities to contribute to the redevelopment process so it reflects the aspirations and priorities of those we represent. We respectfully ask that the board be included in relevant consultation and planning conversations so future infrastructure and community programs, including those focused on sport, recreation, education, well-being, can be aligned with what our community is telling us. This partnership would help guide decision-making through shared purpose, ensuring that redevelopment is both inclusive and future-focused. Additionally, we also welcome Council's strategic support in sourcing feasibility funding and fostering collaborative momentum as we move forward with future development planning progress. That was a good slide. So, the future. Thank you everyone for taking the time to engage with us today. I use notes like this because I can get quite passionate and talk quite a tad. The Link Hub is driven by a shared vision to build a more active, connected and inclusive community through sport, recreation and collective purpose. With Council support, we have the opportunity to shape programs, facilities that not only meet Lincoln's evolving needs, but also empower volunteers and foster a strong sense of belonging. We see this as a chance to shape the future, creating spaces and initiatives that allow our growing population to thrive. Together, we're building Lincoln's future committed to collaboration, innovation and inclusive spaces for all. Thank you very much for your time and we welcome any questions and look forward to continuing the conversation. Nahamanu nui. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you for that presentation and some exciting developments you've already made in connecting people and thinking about your future and the vision, and obviously some real good mahi going on already. The question I've got is around Lincoln was kind of the start of multiculturalism within Selwyn, and Lincoln University really bringing in people from all over the world to Selwyn to study, and then they've just many have decided to remain here. In your work across the various groups, how are you finding and incorporating? And I noticed that it's one of your sort of foundations is that diversity and thinking about bringing in others into what we already have. You've got established sports bodies that you're talking about, but is there some new stuff that's going on as well, or has it kind of been mainly focused on those that have already been existing?
I did take a few lines out because I wanted to focus on where we were at the moment, but we are very keen to be inclusive of all that want to use the Lincoln domain, because that is paramount to creating a thriving community. So any opportunities that we have to engage with others, we will most definitely follow through with.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
I'm really interested to hear about your membership fees. Wanting to know if you're just at the early stages of that, or you've had a lot of discussion around what that looks like. Is that something where non-sports people can sign in as members to help promote that, or is it particularly for anyone who's going to use the facility, it's a requirement? That's my first question.
Thank you. It was, as I said, we were at the high-level view at the moment, and we have no intention at this time to be discussing fees, because that is further down the line and not part of what we presented today. The only reason I touched on it was because Deborah had taken us to that level. Okay. So I have a background in membership-based organisations and have an understanding that there is potential to create a fee system so that you can actually give a better return on investment for your members, and that they can actually engage and belong, and there's other streams on that you can do. But there is no indication or any suggestion at this stage that we are looking at that would be further along the line, if at all, because what we haven't engaged in is that level of focus at this stage. James, have you got anything you'd like to add, or have I covered that through, do you think? No, thank you. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does.
Thank you.
Obviously you've named 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 or so, 7 or 8 sports at the moment. That's what's existing, correct, in the area, or are some of those that are looking to start up?
I think we're 10 organisations that we've got at this stage,
yeah,
or
there's 12 sporting organisations who've joined up in rec organisations at the moment. That is not a complete coverage of Lincoln. Mm-hmm. It is more specifically those who are linked to the domain, because they are the ones that joined together to create the hub and joined it. That's why I did make reference to Selwyn Football, who we've reached out to. There's other organisations, squash organisations. Yeah. Now, to join as a member, you need to be a registered organisation. At the moment. There's no individuals able to join up at the moment. So when I talk about individuals, it's the members of the underlying clubs and organisations. Yeah. Okay. And they very specifically said, and we don't charge fees to any of those for our establishment or ongoing running costs. That's why it's voluntary at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, because the squash is a great example where they've come to us and they're looking for a facility. But they're not yet in Lincoln, but they are elsewhere. So I was just wondering if there are others of those who are not currently in Lincoln but have potentially approached you, or you envision they will.
We envisage, as we gain momentum, that we will grow in member organisations that come along. That's correct.
Thank you. Sophie? Yeah. Kia ora team. Thank you very much for coming today. I've got a couple of questions. The first one is, are there any sports clubs that are directly linked to the domain that have chosen not to join the hub, and is there any particular reasons why that we know of?
I'm not aware of any sports clubs that currently utilise the facilities that are not being part of this discussion.
That's awesome. Yeah. Full coverage. And the other question was around, one of the slides mentioned about a gym facility for fitness and whatnot. And I was just wondering, have you branched out at all to, because there's 3 gyms, well, there's 2 commercial gyms in Lincoln and also the Lincoln University gym who are a partner. So I'm not quite sure, it's not that I'm not quite sure, I'm just wondering if that's something that potentially is worth reaching out to, build the evidence that this is going to get work, for funding with applications and that sort of thing.
The comment on that was based on the feedback of the survey. So that's what the members indicated I think they would like their own facilities as opposed to other paid organisations or paying membership fees to other organisations to use those facilities. However, as we move forward, if they become partners to the organisation, then we may be able to come up with some reciprocal membership benefits. At that point, that's when benefit organisations' fees may be chargeable in the future, but we're not at that point yet.
That's cool. It's really cool to see like a bit of an ecosystem growing, and we haven't got this sort of thing here as yet. So it's really interesting to see how it develops. Thank you.
Hi. I've got 3 questions for you. I guess the first one is there any, as you're operating at a macro level, is there any fatal planning issues that we need to pause to accommodate you? I'm thinking particularly around the reserve extension plans and the new road we're going to build, Maya Drive extension right through to Boundary Road. Does that link in with your vision for the future of the domain?
That refers back to the slide that I was actually asking about as being formal partnerships, so we can actually be part of those conversations. I don't think we've come across anything as yet that we can give feedback on around that situation.
So are you envisaging creating a master plan yourself or working in collaboration on the council's master plan?
As mentioned earlier, I think it would be a collaboration of a master plan, and that's why we want to be in the room to be part of that conversation.
One of the things that
Grant, is it okay if I add to that?
Yeah, of course.
I think on the existing domain where we've got, if you sort of take an aerial shot of where the courts are at the moment, for example, and there's kind of a public toilet and a few car parks and a club rooms awkwardly placed right where you'd expand those courts, and rugby club that's over the far end. There's the ability to sort of start to look at all of that and go, okay, like if we're going to start to spend some money on in the next 10, 15, 20 years, whenever that is, what does the start to look like from a best laid plans point of view? And I think that's where the emphasis goes. I think these guys have been involved in the domain extension work, and the engineer package is out for that at the moment. That's pretty simple. It's the rejigging of what's existing that's probably the complex part that we'd really need these guys' help on.
Yeah, man. Second question is, sort of surprised me that that you probably rated them. Is it covered courts versus pool? Seems to be the question. If you've only got one bite at the cherry, which are you choosing? And I just wondered why there'd been quite a change, because certainly that's been very, very strong that Lincoln wants a pool.
I'll let James answer that if that's directed at me, but and then if I feel like adding.
Yep, no, that's cool. The pool has certainly been part of discussions as part of all this work, as has covered court. So those are probably the 2 key things that have come through. I think we are doing a refresh of the aquatics facilities plan this financial year. So that'll start to inform what that next step looks like for Lincoln, Rolleston, etc., which may start to tie into some of this work as well, potentially looking at sprung structures. And obviously that's where, if we can try and get the school involved and on board, they've got an existing pool there, as you're aware, that may be able to be used as well. So there's certainly, I think getting the school on board has been a major leap forward, so it's been great. Happy for you to add to that, Yvonne.
I'm not sure really that there's
something that you should include. I noticed that golf's not included in there, and from an aerial picture perspective, there's a lot of green space in there which potentially could be used for soccer fields and other things. And it's a hard conversation, but it needs to be had probably as part of your macro picture, that a growing town the size of Lincoln is probably having a 9-hole golf course surrounded by houses is not ideal, and it probably needs to be relocated and free up that space there, particularly for that kind of hub concept that you're talking about, which would accommodate a lot more fields within that space. So I guess I'm challenging you not to shy away from the hard conversations, which people will be quite affronted and quite afraid of what you're proposing. But if you are operating at that level, that's a conversation you need to have probably, I think.
thank you. It's not one of the organisations we've been taking part of, but we can.
Council owns the land underneath the golf course.
That was one where I was going. So it's actually council land property. Okay.
Yeah. And we're already seeing, golf balls landing in back sections. So that may be the council's fault for allowing houses to be built next to a golf course, but that's another story. Thank you.
Probably going to raise the helicopter a little bit with regards to funding. A project like this would have to go into the LTP process, and just want to clarify that when we collect development contributions, we can only collect them for capital or new projects, not maintenance or upgrades. And the upgrades are depending on the division of how the funds are actually spent between those that are benefiting and those new ones that are coming into benefit, because DCs are quite complicated. We only have a pot of money with regards to DCs. We have a lot of growth happening in Prebbleton, we have Lincoln, and we have Rolleston. And the way that we have a catchment for collecting our development contributions at the moment is all of that high growth area. So just be mindful of the fact that you will be competing maybe against other growing townships within that commuter belt or the Greater Christchurch Partnership when it comes to funding these sorts of projects. And it's not all guaranteed that it will be funded 100% from new development, depending on whether it is a new development commitment or whether it is a partnership with existing ratepayers. So just be mindful of your budget and how it is going to be caught with regards to who's going to pay.
Yeah, congratulations on how far you've got already. I'm very impressed. I mean, as I said to you earlier, 20 years ago, I tried to achieve this when we built the event centre. I'm very interested to hear the school's involvement, because that was a major stumbling block. At that time, we were hoping that they might come in with us on the event centre and we'd have a shared gymnasium. But in the words of the principal, it was too far to walk the students through to there and back. And since then, I'm aware the school has built a gymnasium. So if we're going to have cooperation, I'd be very interested to see that opened up in the evenings when the school's not using it for the community. The other question is netball. They are on board with your plan?
So we both have the Ellesmere and the Lincoln netball representatives on our group,
Right.
And they have been very vocal in contributing to the. I mean, in contributing, they haven't been just sitting at the back with arms folded. They've actually been talking and communicating with us very well. So.
Oh, that's good, because once again, the stumbling blocks that I had some years ago, that was a major part of it. And since then, we've built the courts here. It's taken some of the pressure off Lincoln there. But at one stage, it was certainly not the case. So go well. I'm looking forward to, as I'm retiring, and Grant is too, bringing up selling off the golf course. Yeah, drop the hand grenade.
I'm not saying not replace it.
As well at Taita. Sometimes these things have to be said because it is a large piece of land owned by the council, and you have to question the use. But go well. I'll give you all the support to the future.
Thank you. Grant, did you have something else? Or
I
we'll
just,
wrap up?
what might be really helpful for you, there's a really excellent council report called the Sport, Active Recreation and Play Report, which was generated internally. I think it was 7th of September 2022. I saw the draft copy of it, which would be that would be very helpful for you guys. You may have already given it to them, James, but I think it'd be a great report to have.
Thanks, Grant. James, final sort of thoughts from you. Like, this is trying to get people to work together can be really obvious from the outside, and then you try and make it happen, and people's egos or history gets in the way of making things happen. So I want to just acknowledge the work that you've done to get something like this across the line, whether it's in sports or we've been trying with emergency services and all sorts of things to try and bring people together. How do we make this, not only this successful, but how do we encourage others across the district to think about the benefits of working together the money that can be saved, the focus and energy that can be put into participation and activity. Have you got thoughts or is there plans around that beyond this just being for Lincoln?
Yeah, no pressure, but this one, be good if this one works, because that would help. To your point, Sam, it has been very interesting. This is why we needed to look at a different way of doing things, because everyone was very protective of their own patch and like, we're going to do this and council's going to help fund it. Like, oh, this is going to cost millions and millions and millions of dollars across the reserve, and it's just not feasible. So having this approach, I think, is going to it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. I would say that it is a little bit confrontational for council, but officers and possibly elected members as well, is actually that we are giving some control away here. A facility in the future may go up and it won't be council running it, it'll be community running it. But what a good news story that is, because there's no overheads associated with it, and it's community doing exactly what they want to do. So I think there's going to be some real benefits, but I also don't think it's going to be easy. And making sure that we keep this progressing as best we can without just there'll be a block your ears, but there'll be a probably a want from council to get in there and just pay for it, and because then it'll get it done. But then that also means you've got to pay for everyone else. So there's other funding streams available that we can advocate for and use our connections to make work. And I think that's the way forward, and might involve some seed funding or some ground leasing or there's a whole lot of other levers we can help with. But we'll just have to have our eyes open to that and work through it nice and carefully and make sure it happens with a really nice outcome. Would be good.
Great. Well, Barry and Yvonne, thank you for coming in today and presenting that. To us all the best with your future work. Thank you. Councillors, before we move to the next item, there's been an earthquake tsunami advisory that I've just forwarded to you. Our staff have sent out following a